TGIF Chicago, welcome to your Memorial Day weekend, friends, and thank you so much for kicking it off with us. This is Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse, the voice of the Chicago sports fan. For some gave all, we have this wonderful weekend to celebrate with our friends and family in a monster thanks of appreciation and admiration for our men and women in uniform, both past and present, like the Punky LT Brandon Trax Hyatt, who will be visiting with us later in the show. Let's never forget that some gave all for the freedom that we will all be enjoying this Memorial Day weekend. Okay. Friends, as we know, this weekend marks the unofficial start of summer, but passionate Chicago sports talk is always in season, and we've got a special Memorial Day monster show bigger than Lake Michigan itself to break it all down with you. I'm your boy, Clete Campbell from Iowa Friends, and I am with Mr. Chicago, Sean Lugo, tonight. Sean, my friend, happy Memorial Day weekend. How you doing?
I'm feeling good, man. Ready to talk a little Bears and get this Memorial weekend started off right. Let's go, baby.
Absolutely. Let's rock and roll. No better way to kick things off than with your beloved Chicago Bears friends. This segment of Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse, is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the official fantasy sports partner of Chicago Sports Podcast. Friends, never in the history of the National Football League has off-season workout stats factored into the game itself. But that, of course, doesn't stop us diehard Bears fans from studying them like we studied for our eighth grade Constitution test. Caleb, the Chef Williams, did not look like exactly ready or exactly as the second coming of Sid Luckman in his first two official Bears offensive drills this week against a fierce defense, Sean, that was giving him no favors whatsoever. Sean, should we have any concern whatsoever? I mean, let's face it, Caleb's not losing sleep over his struggles in his first two official Bears workouts against the number one defense.
No, I'm not concerned at all. Number one, if you really break it down, we've been listening to all these guys that were actually at Hallis Hall watching this stuff. Half the offense wasn't out there. There was no Darnell Wright. There was no Nate Davis. There was no Roma Dunze. There was no Keenan Allen. It's not like he was playing with the full deck. Now, also, you're looking at a guy who got his first reps against an NFL defense for the first time ever, going up against a defense who's loaded in the secondary and has been in the same system for 3 years.
Yeah.
So if we're having this discussion, let's say August 15th, maybe I'm going to be a little bit more concerned. But on day 3 of 7-on-7s, I'm not overly concerned at this moment. You guys got to remember too, one of his knocks, much like Justin Fields, was he was holding on to the ball too long. And some of the reports coming out of camp was when those red zone drills, he wasn't getting the ball out of there quick enough.
Yeah.
I'm still not really worried about that. I do think that over time here, he'll get acclimated to the NFL and he'll come along. He's obviously ultra talented. So let's give him some time and not overreact, let's say.
Yeah, friends, as Mr. Chicago, Sean Lugo, is stating, the calendar says it's May 24th, not September 10th. So this is not the eve of the Bears opener without question. And like you said, Sean, too, he's basically, this is trying to win blackjack when the dealer's got 21 and you've got a 5 or 2, and you're looking a long way to go to get even close. I mean, he didn't have Keegan Allen, as you said, didn't have Rome. But so is this really just a case of rookie QB taking his first practice dances with a new team against a defense, improved defense? They really wanted to make a statement for their position coaches and their coaching staff in the first couple days of OTAs.
Yeah, absolutely. If you listen to Eric Washington, he came out and said the defense played salty. He actually said that at his press conference. I think the defense is like, hey, man, we've been hearing all this stuff about Caleb Williams. We're returning 9 starters to this defense. And by the way, we added Kevin Byard, who's not too shabby of a player. Let's go show this guy what he's got. But again, I still think that's part of the development process. So nothing for me to overreact it. The defense, we know the defense is good. Let me ask you this question, Clete. If he came out there yesterday without those players on offense and lit up that secondary, I think we'd be more concerned about that, wouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And that would be our lead. That would be our lead segment. Caleb's fine, but what about this Bears defense? Without question. And like you said, Sean, Kevin Byard is a 9-year veteran of the NFL wars, and he's an experienced OTA man. But what I really loved is what he told the chef after the game. He said, "Keep it going. We're going to keep making you better." And not necessarily saying that he had a terrible day Thursday, but days like this are going to make you better. Sean, how much can Caleb learn about NFL Sundays from his experienced defense?
I think he's going to learn a lot. I mean, you're talking about, and I'm not saying we have 5 all pros, but we have 5 players back there that play like all pros. Our secondary is really good. They're going to make life tough for him. And I think that's only going to benefit him because I don't think there's too many NFL secondaries that look like the Chicago Bears. So I think this is going to be a nice little, hey, if this is what I have to face at the top level, everything in the middle should be pretty easy. And you know what? This is great experience. He's coming from the Pac-12. He never faced anything like this. You know, he's also going to see a bunch of different things, blitz packages, some concepts, things he's just never seen. You know, I was looking, I listened to a podcast the other day, and they said the one thing that Caleb Williams is going to learn, a blitzing linebacker in the Pac-12, you know he's blitzing because he stands stationary. In the NFL, that doesn't happen. He's going to have to get used to some of those nuances that he's never seen, and it's going to come in time. And they said they're throwing a high volume of stuff at him right now, and he's absorbing it. So you got to still think they're throwing all this at him. He's gobbling it up. He's going to have to take some time to process it. I definitely think these bad days are going to help have good days. And the other thing is, if we're reacting like this, oh my God, if he has one of these days in August, I think people's heads are going to explode.
Yeah. I remember Desmond King, an terrific all-pro, all-American for the Iowa Hawkeyes, told me once, when you make that jump from Big Ten, Pac-12, SEC football to the NFL, obviously the speed of the game is what we all notice. But he says everything is just in terms of play calling. Everything is disguised so much more. You have so many more deep options. When you get that playbook each week, it's you're looking at something that's 50% different what you had the week before. And you look at all those disguises. You were talking about the pass rushes he's going to see. What's going to be key for him being able to see those tells? Because, like you say, it's not going to be a stationary linebacker like it was in the Pac-12. What's going to be the difference, Sean, for Caleb be able to read those tells, see where the defense is coming, and be able to get that ball out very quickly? Particularly when, like you were talking about before, our biggest concern for him right now is running that 2-minute drill.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be time. He's got to get used to the NFL level, the speed of the game. He's never seen this before. And I think playing against Edmonds and Edwards at linebacker, they're going to help him. And this is something, hey, what did I miss here in this blitz package? How was this hidden? And I think he'll absorb that. He seems very intelligent. So I think it's just getting out there a little bit, seeing it for the first time, gobbling it up, looking at tape, going back and saying, hey, this is what I missed. This is how I missed it. Let's not make this mistake again. Let's be honest. He's going to make mistakes. Everyone that thinks he's just going to come in and be a perfect quarterback in the NFL. Yeah, hello. Welcome to the NFL, kid. We're not Chicago. The Bears defense isn't the only one hearing all this hype. Every defender in the NFL is going to want to come after this kid, and every defensive coordinator is going to want to come after this kid. So it's going to take a little time, but I think he's going to be all right. I think he'll be all right.
Without question. Our good friend Cliff Victoria. Cliff, thanks for chiming in. Folks, be sure to get your comments posted there. Like us on YouTube, subscribe as well to get all episodes live of Monsters of the Madhouse. And Cliff, you're absolutely right. I mean, no one is going to remember OTAs 2 weeks from now, let alone 2 months. But this is what the Chicago media, unfortunately, has to do in Chicago. They make mountains out of molehills from OTAs, Cliff, because really they don't have a lot else to cover. So you know how sensationalistic it can get. So, and I know there's people out there saying Caleb Williams was looking like Rick Meyer at the 1997 OTAs out there. And yeah, there's not much to do about nothing. We talk about it because, well, we're Bears fans. We talk about everything. But the biggest difference, Cliff, is I'm old enough to remember 1997, and I remember how badly Rick Meyer was struggling. And the thing about 97 is when he would complete a 4-yard outer screen, Dave Wanstead had to sell it like, wow, look at the strides this guy's making, because that was how rudimentary and bad time. And of course, we would know, Cliff, going on, just how bad those 97 Bears would be. But like you say, there's nothing I think concerned here at all for me. I mean, if we're getting week 3 of training camp, Sean, and we're still having days where, Caleb's thrown in double coverage constantly,
Yeah.
picked off twice by the defense a day, then I'll worry. But right
Yeah.
now, like Cliff says, this is, you can't really judge anything here.
The Scottish Bear brings up a good point right there too. Patrick Mahomes struggled in OTAs. I think it's a complete overreaction at this point. I agree with you 100%, Scottish Bear. I think we're going to keep moving on. And you guys got to remember, I don't remember what CJ Stroud or how he looked in OTAs, but I believe his first 300-yard passing game in the NFL was week 2.
Yeah.
And he had a couple, I think he had another one after that. He went through a little lull there where I think he threw for like 220, 150, and then he exploded for like 440, 370. And you know what? Those are obviously abnormal numbers for a rookie. But he also showed in that great season, he passed for 4,100 yards, that he still, even though how good he was, had his ups and he had his downs. Yeah. And that's just what life in the NFL and life dealing with a rookie quarterback,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, Cliff was talking about it. He's old enough to remember, the 85 Bears and just how fierce that Bears defense was. And we know legendary guys like Steve Mongo McMichael, the new Hall of Famer, Richard at Hampton, that whole defense. I mean, they approached practice like they did a game. I mean, they didn't care about no red jerseys on Jimmy Mack. They would hit as hard as possible. And, Coach Flus talked about this Thursday, talking to reporters, that this defense has that same kind of mindset that Cliff's talking about with the 85 Bears. He said, we're not holding back on Williams, but this is how is this no easy snap mandate that Flus is giving his defense going to make Caleb a better quarterback come opening day, Sean, against the Tennessee Titans?
After visiting with Kurt Becker on Monday, and he was talking about the training camps in Platteville, how it was a bloodbath. They went full bore every play, 2-a-days, no breaks. And look at the results.
Yeah.
I think I love that they're doing this. Bring it to the kid, test the kid, get him ready. Let him see different concepts. Let him see different designs. Go at him. I love it. And I think Caleb loves it too, because he's not sitting there crying right now. He's got to get up to speed. You want to be great? This is what it takes to be great. Throw the book at him, throw the house at him, get him under pressure, get him comfortable. When he sees this on opening day, hopefully he's like, oh, I remember this. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. And that the point that Cliff talks about, you were talking about, but how the 85 Bears would bring the house against that offense for 2-a-days in the 95-degree heat of Platteville. Then even when the practice was over, they would take them all to Second Street and they would drink the offense under the table, drinking 2 pitchers for one for everyone that old Mad Suey and the Jimbo Covert and the boys in the line could put down. There was no rest for the wicked with the monsters of the Midway. No, sir, not at all. Hey, let's talk about this defense drinking salt water. As you mentioned, Sean, this segment of Monsters of the Madhouse, friends, is brought to you by Bridges Scoreboard, your Memorial Day big game Northwest Indiana Chicago sports headquarters with the Hall of Fame menu. Get to Bridges this weekend, folks. They will have all the big games from the NHL and NBA playoffs. They'll also have the Cubs and Cardinals on the telly this weekend, and the best specials in all of Northwest Indiana. Sean, all reports, as you've been mentioning, have the Bears defense being saltier than Lake Michigan in OTAs this week. As our good friend Ken Mitchell of Windy City Gridiron said today, the defense leads the way at practice, giving Caleb Williams and the offense a hard day indeed. This intensity, as Cliff's been talking about, man, you got to love it. You got to love it that they're coming out at, in practices, as we've been mentioning, that will have no relevance in 2 months, but they are going at it like this is like the eve of the opening night.
Yeah, the thing I do like about it is because we do have a rookie quarterback here. Yeah. And there's no telling going into the season, is it going to be 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks? And I think I said last week, the defense is going to have to possibly lead the way weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And hopefully, be taking that ball away, setting him up in short fields until he can put the bricks on his back and start building the house himself. I love that they're hey, let's go. We're ready. We're a top 10 defense last year. We're here to show it to you. Let's go. I absolutely love what's happening right now. This is a different culture. This is just something we haven't seen like since '85. Like,
yeah, exactly. I mean, I what I love about this defense, and I think we have to go back to the Lance Briggs, Brian Urlacher D's that kind of played with that same kind of swagger, and that's what's been missing. That swagger, that swagger, which is when you talk about the greatest Bears defenses of all time, they were all arrogant. They all had that swagger, and they played with it on every down. And we're seeing pieces of that. But it goes back to the point you were talking about. Top 10 defense last year. How do we become top 5 this year, Mr. Chicago? By making that pass rush one of the best in the NFL. Is that where this defense has to take its game to the next level the most if they truly are going to become an elite unit week in and week out?
Yeah, absolutely. I outside of Montez Sweat right now, and I think on all of our shows we've been talking about this. If Montez Sweat goes down, where do we go for pass rush? I mean, this guy's probably the most important person on this defense. So I think here starting, and this is one of the reasons I love this intensity from this defense. You got to find out a guy who I don't think is going to make the team, but maybe he will, is Dominique Robinson. But you got to get Austin Booker, a guy that you traded up to get in this draft. You got to get him going, get him up to the speed. Hopefully you can get some production out of him, maybe rotating him with DeMarcus Walker a little bit. You got to find someone that's going to help you on the other side. So if they're double teaming Sweat, which a lot of teams are going to go after him because, hey, you got to prove yourself on the other side. So developing that pass rush, and getting creative. Eric Washington, maybe bringing some safety blitzes, safeties off the edge, linebackers. I think a lot is going to have to deal with Eric Washington, some of his concepts and schemes as well. But I do think this training camp, OTAs, we got official mini camp starts next week, or the week after. I know it's coming up really soon. I don't have the calendar in front of me, but I think it's very important that Austin Booker gets in there. I'm a huge Jayhawk, so I really want this kid to succeed here. And I love his makeup. They actually had a picture on Twitter of him from Kansas to already being with the Bears, and he looks like he's bulked up a little bit.
Yeah.
So, get that strength. He was already a powerful dude in college.
Yeah.
So get that strength, hopefully him and DeMarcus Walker. I know some of our friends on CSP are big fans of DeMarcus Walker, but if you can get that guy in a rotational role, hopefully him and Booker can make something happen on that side. But yeah, pass rush definitely has to improve. And I'm still hoping they sign Calais Campbell.
Yeah, I am right there with you, my friend. You can always use more Campbells in the National Football League.
That's right.
Yeah. Hey, defensively, there are some guys who need to make statements. Not only for this defense to go to the next level, but for them just to solidify their spot on the 2 deep, or in some cases, the roster. What guy right now do you think, from what we've seen, obviously it's 2 OTAs, as the guy, our great fans have been telling us, you can't judge anything, but who right now looks like they have to make the biggest offseason statement in their practice effort, their conditioning, everything, if they're going to be a critical member of this defense come this fall?
Anyone on that defensive line, because the depth right now just is not there. We're not seeing it. So the one name I'll throw out there, and he was an undrafted free agent from Illinois, Keith Randolph, I believe was his name, the D tackle. I'm really hoping that he'll practice well and he'll turn out and give us maybe a little bit of depth. He looked really good at Illinois. Mm-hmm. I'm just hoping maybe somebody we just don't know, a star rises from the ashes that we just don't know yet, and we need some help on that D-line. And it really, how that pans out, I think, is how this defense, if they're going to take that step up to the top 5, that's where it's going to come from. That front 7 has got to get better, because we know the back end is rock solid as can be.
Yeah, I agree, Sean. I think there's a mystery, man. Like we were talking about it. I think we have about $12.5 million of available cap space to use for 2024. I think there's still a mystery man out there. But as you were talking about, somebody is going to get signed before we hit training camp.
And we got some cuts coming here too. So, you might be able to find someone off another roster.
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely, folks, stay tuned for that. The Bears, Ryan Poles probably is not done tinkering with this roster for the 2024 season. Friends, you are tuned in to the voice of the Chicago sports fan, Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse. Thank you so much for joining us. Stephanie, it's so great to see you. Jeremy, thanks for checking in again. Scottish Bear, our good friend Cliff. Guys, we love the fact that you're kicking off your weekend and talking sports with us. Great to have you with us.
Thanks,
And we're going
guys.
to keep on rolling, friends. That the good times keep on rolling with the great American football DJ. Friends, this segment of Monsters of the Madhouse is brought to you by TC's World of Wonders, your one-stop shop for all of America's best online sports jersey and memorabilia deals. Is one click away at tcsworldofwonders.com, where you can wear your Chicago sports pride stylishly and at a great price. Okay, friends, we all know that our good friend Matt Cooper, who is working tonight, is unable to join us. We all know that Matt Cooper is the undisputed great American DJ. But Sean Lugo, is DJ Moore Matt's football brother from another mother? The Bears ultra wideout is quickly becoming the voice, heart, and soul of the Bears. When you think of the man of the Chicago Bears today, Sean Lugo, on Friday, May 24th, 2024, do you think DJ Moore even before you think Caleb Williams?
Oh, that's a good question. We miss you, Coop, by the way.
Yeah, he's with us in spirit.
I think so. I think he's becoming a little bit more vocal. I think I kind of think of the Tez effect as well. Just the way that guy came onto the team last year and just changed its dynamic.
Yeah.
But on the offensive side of the ball, I do think of DJ Moore. I think he's a tone setter. I also do think that he's going to share that spotlight a little bit with Keenan Allen this year. This wily veteran, Pro Bowler. But I do, and I love DJ Moore. His press conference the other day was just priceless. I mean, that guy is a national treasure. He really is.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, what Mr. Chicago Sean Lugo is talking about, listen to this. Talk about having your teammates back. Here's DJ on Caleb, how his teammates are going to support him this year. We are going to ride through hell and back with Caleb. What does this say about DJ's commitment to the team, Sean, his quarterback, and the Bears' unwavering belief in the chef?
It was funny because they asked him in that press conference if he was, because he was so dedicated to Fields, and he was like, I'd like my quarterback to stay. But as soon as that, hey, it's a business. This is my guy. It just shows his commitment, man. This guy's dedicated to the Chicago Bears, and he's dedicated to whatever it takes to get this job done. He comes in, he puts in the work. I mean, look, he's at OTAs. He doesn't have to be there right now. I mean, he's stepping up. He's earning that contract, that draft capital, everything that the Bears did to get this guy here. It should have every Bears fan smiling to see that this guy's putting out there to have an all-pro season for the Chicago Bears, because he's got to set the example for Roma Dunze too. This kid's a rookie. He's got to learn. These guys, Allen, who was excused because of a birthday for his daughter, guys, this week, or graduation, excuse me. They got to be the tone setters. They got to show this is what's life is like in the NFL. So I love what DJ Moore's doing. To me, the guy's a national treasure, man.
Without question.
I actually just met him. And he got me a nice little bear down.
Look at that. Wow.
He got me a nice little bear down helmet.
Absolutely. Bear down. Wow. Autographed and everything, Sean. Wow.
Yeah.
Very nice. We talked, ad nauseum about the genius of Ryan Poles making the trade for DJ Moore, the wealth of picks that it brought back when he dealt the number one overall pick, the 2023 draft for DJ, and just a king's ransom. But the thing about it is, forget everything that he brought out. Forget all the things that came with him. The number one picks, what we were able to do to get Caleb this year, the second rounders we still have coming next year. Have we already gotten won that deal with what he's given us in 1 year plus? I mean, has he already lived up to all the hype and more in just what he's given this team with leadership, production, numbers, all pro caliber play week in, week out? It seems like I cannot remember the Bears winning a trade like this.
Right.
Gosh, I love it. I love it. Cliff or someone can remember. I'm trying to think of a lopsided Bears trade that we made that was better than this. I can't.
I can't either. I mean, I remember when they were like, yeah, DJ Moore's in the trade. I started calling everyone. I'm like, dude, we just got
Yeah.
DJ Moore, dude. Like, come on, man. Are you serious? This guy's never had a quarterback in his life. And now he actually is going to have Caleb Williams, who's probably going to throw the best ball that he's ever had. And I'll tell you this. I know there's a lot more mouths to feed, with Komet and Everett and Dunze, Allen, Swift. But this dude, he's going to be the guy. He's going to be the guy. I mean, Keenan Allen's going to set you up. He's going to find the soft spots in the zone. He'll line up there, get you some yak yards. But I think looking down the field, this is going to be your guy, man. I mean, look, he was almost uncoverable with Justin Fields. I mean, I think we took a step up in talent with our quarterback. So I absolutely think the Bears crushed this trade. And if I remember correctly, I think Carolina was very hesitant to put him in the trade. And the Bears are like, look, you want to make this deal? You're giving us DJ Moore.
That was the thing. And there was when that trade came out, I remember Trax talking about it too. We thought we could make the deal, but when DJ Moore became the centerpiece of it, it went to a whole nother level because we're not just thinking about trading capital of draft picks here. We're talking about, a wide receiver that already had 2,000-yard seasons to his name with about 25 different quarterbacks throwing to him. So it's going to be interesting. Like Cliff Victoria says, usually we're on the other side of this. Usually we're the ones getting fleeced, whether it's the Mitch Trubisky deal or whether, we're giving up a little bit too much from a Khalil Mack. It's just, love to see it. And it's really, I think right now, if you're creating round polls on deals, there's only one questionable out there where you could say maybe he lost, and that is the Chase Claypool second round deal. Other than that, this guy has been money getting maximum return on investment. Hey, friends, you are watching the voice of the Chicago sports band, Monsters of the Madhouse, brought to you by Chicago Sports Podcast. Please hit that like button on YouTube and be sure to subscribe to our channel so you can get every thrilling edition of CSP. This has been a blockbuster week. Brandon Trax Hyatt has been lining up guests like he's booking Sports Center. I mean, we have Bears Super Bowl champion Kurt Becker this week. You sat down with the Chicago sports media legend Jay Hood of the Captain Jay Hood Show, Jonathan Hood, on Wednesday. And then, of course, one of my all-time favorite interviews, one of my all-time favorite Bears, the great Wendell Davis, the man who's tougher than a $2 steak.
Wendell.
More big stuff. Brandon Trax Hyatt French has lined up for June, so don't you go anywhere. Stay locked in to the passionate voice of the Chicago sports band, Chicago Sports Podcast. Speaking of Chicago legends, let's talk about this really quickly. The Hall of Fame bus for Steve Mongo McMichael. Of course, Mongo going in to the Hall of Fame. It's finally taking his rightful place in Canton with the Windy City Flyer, Devin Hester, and Julius Peppers. August, Sean. His Hall of Fame bus came out this week, and it's glorious.
Yeah.
It's the old Bobby Roode WWE entrance thing. Glorious. I want to get your thoughts on it. What I love, it's a beautiful rendering of Mongo, but, you get so much. You get that mischievous smile. You get that little kind of that Catshire, the Cheshire cat grin there. You get the gray hair. Did they just hit it out of the park with the bust of Mongo? I mean, it just captured him, his personality, his image to an absolute certainty.
Yeah, it was absolutely gorgeous. Brandon actually debuted it on the Jay Hood Show. He put it on the center for us when he got it, and I was like, "Wow, that's pretty impressive." I actually, on another note for our other guy going in, I actually watched. They had a behind the scenes little thing on Devin Hester, and they actually showed them making Devin Hester's, and I was like, "Wow, that's really cool." And I mean, Hester was just standing there like posed and like they were tickling it out. I was like, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. Isn't it just and it's funny because, back in the 30s and 40s, that's what guys would do, in the very first classes of the National Football League Hall of Fame, guys would sit, but, they would just draw, old school. But now it's so cool how they mold them almost in 3D. Yeah. And I cannot wait. Have they announced the date for the reveal of Devin's bust? Sean?
I already saw it. It was on Facebook. That's where I found it. I don't know if they revealed it to the
How did I miss that week? This week? I got it.
I'll send it to you. I'm pretty sure I saved it. I'll send it to you.
Just so cool, so cool. As we mentioned, folks, the Bears already have the most Hall of Famers of any NFL team. We'll add 3 more in August. Brandon Trax Hyatt and Chicago Sports Podcast will be there with live coverage of the induction ceremony and Hall of Fame game, friends. Hey, great point from our good friend Cliff Victoria talking about the greatest deals in Chicago Bears history. Cliff mentions that great deal that when we got Marty Booker way back in the day, only had to give up a fourth, I think, to steal that. I completely had forgotten about that, without question. So,
you know what? It's really quick. Can we get to that last question before Cliff?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Gregory Stevens. Yeah, you want to take that one from Gregory, Sean?
Yeah, Gregory. Waldron's scheme attacks all levels of the defense at the same time. They have some really great footage. If you go on the what's his name? I can't think of the quarterback, Tim Jenkins and the Bears' old backup quarterback, clipboard guy. I can't think of his name. It's not coming to me. We talked about him the other day, and I can draw on a blank. Went around the league, made $40 million as a backup holding a clipboard. God, why can't I think of his name right now?
Oh, you're right. He played for half. Yeah, played for literally half.
Missouri. He was up. He went to Missouri too.
Oh, Missouri, yes. Oh, he's right there. He's right there, Cliff. I know. Oh my gosh.
He actually, both of them broke down the all 22. That's what it is. Go look up the all 22. They have a phenomenal breakdown of what Waldron does, how he hides the schemes, how he moves people around. It's actually phenomenal, and I'm very excited to see how he does this with the Bears offense.
I think it's Chase Daniel.
Chase Daniel. Yes, thank you. I try to forget all things Missouri. Sorry, Michael.
I do not blame you at all. And Cliff brings up a good point too. You talk about what he did with Geno Smith, who, as Cliff notes, was so close to being out of the league. I mean, literally, he was probably one bad season from being out of the league entirely, and he's able to turn him into an all-pro quarterback, a guy who could throw for 4,000 yards, a guy who can hit receivers in different spots, who can run a huge playbook with a myriad of schemes, and also plays his way into a $25 million a year contract. So if, like Cliff says, if he could do that, if Walter could do that with Geno Smith, the sky is definitely the limit of what
he did that with a really, really bad offensive line in Seattle last year. And he did it by moving the quarterback, changing arm slots, getting people open, and disguising his schemes, which he is a master at. Just watch that all 22, look it up. It's going to blow your mind what this guy did in Seattle.
It is so good. Hey, Jeremy, I tell you what, we will get Mongo and we'll get Devins as soon as we finish the show tonight, Jeremy. We'll get both of those up at our Facebook page, Chicago Sports Podcast. It is so cool. I cannot say enough about how well the Hall Skelters put Mongos together, friends. All right, friends, talking about greatness, it's time for us, and we're going to need all your help, friends. We're going to bring in the whole family. We need Cliff, we need Jeremy, we need Gregory, everyone, because this is an all-interactive segment that we're headed into. This segment of Chicago Sports Podcast is brought to you by Serendipity Ice Cream Parlor, where there's no better way or more delicious way to kick off summer this weekend than at Serendipity Ice Cream Parlor, where it is delicious ice cream heaven every day of the year, friends. Okay, now, friends, we know the average NFL career lasts less than 3 years. It's a cup of coffee. It's a sunrise and a sunset, and we all know that you only need one game to become legendary and immortal. And in the 105-year history of the Chicago Bears, we have seen the greatest one-day feats of gridiron greatness that this game has ever seen. We are talking about the greatest one-game performances, friends, in Chicago Bears history. Now, what could this be, Sean? I mean, we could debate this till the cows come home. We could debate this to the end of the year. But what we're trying to do tonight, friends, and by no means is this going to be a definitive list, is trying to come up with the top 10 Bears single game greatest performances of all time that we're going to try to narrow down to 5 by the end of the night. And then next week, we'll talk about this and discuss it. We will come up with the undisputed, unquestioned greatest Chicago sports podcast Bears single game performance of all time. So obviously, as we mentioned, Sean Luger, we're not going to settle this in 10 minutes, but let's do the contenders. And friends, we really want all of you. Feel free to chime in, get your thoughts, because there might be some we overlooked here your vote for the greatest Bears single game performance of all time. Let's look at the contenders, Sean Lugo. Want to get your thoughts after I say each one, Sean? If I could get your quick thought, just a quick thoughts, your recap. Let's start off, ladies and gentlemen, which is my stone cold lead pipe lock to maybe win it all. Sweetness himself, the greatest football player of all time, rushing for a then NFL record 275 yards against the Vikings in the Metrodome in 1977. That's before your time, Sean Lugo. But I'm sure you've seen the legendary film on that.
Yeah, I actually have. And I'll say it's a record I believe it was held for about 23 years by Walter Payton.
Yeah.
And it's only still been surpassed by, I think, 3 players. I think Peterson, Jamal Lewis, and
Derrick Henry. Did Henry get that?
No.
I can't remember.
So I think Derrick Henry's biggest game was 250. I think.
Yeah, he might have come up short on that. Yeah. But
I know Adrian Peterson ran for 250 and a half.
Yeah.
But for that record alone, for it to stand for 23 years, and hey, anytime you rush for 275 in a game, that's legendary, man.
Well, it was especially with that offensive line. Offensive line, because
really bad offensive line.
The 77 Bears team willed themselves to the playoffs on the arm of the late great Bob Avellini, and the rest was all Walter, friends. Jeremy, I love it. The refrigerator TV in the '85 Super Bowl, one of my all-time favorites.
It's hanging on my wall,
moments, without question. Let's talk about number 2. Let a game that you were at. Mike Brown pick sixes and walks up the 49ers in 2001. The only players you mentioned, Mr. Chicago, Sean Lugo, before the show started, the only player in NFL history to have 2 walk-off pick sixes in back-to-back weeks.
Yep, in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
And a record that'll probably never be broken because that was amazing in itself. Yeah, I was with my brother and we were at the Niners game, and that Niners game, it was an absolute pandemonium. It's one of my favorite games I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot of Bears games. But that was just, I mean, it felt like there was a ceiling and it exploded off when there was beer cups flying everywhere. It was crazy. The only thing that sucked for me is we were in the opposite end zone. So, but that's still okay. And then the next week against Cleveland, I remember, I think it was Brian Robinson who popped the ball in the air, and I can't remember if Mike Brown was either blitzing or playing press coverage.
Yeah.
Tim Couch let that ball go, and it shot like 10 feet up in the air and just came down in his breadbasket, and he took it off. And we were actually in that end zone for that game that week, which was really cool. But yeah, because for me, and I like that you have it at number 2 behind Peyton, because that's historic in some history that's probably never going to get rewritten in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's the point about it too. That we're not going to see that again. With the way the game played today, things like that. And I remember I was stuck in weekend rush hour traffic on the Kennedy, and I just remember Jeff Joniak, his voice breaking. When he made that call, touchdown Bears for the win. Hey, let's go to Scottish Bear. Scottish Bear brings up a great point, and that's our next one. Let's go back to a man who, boy, if he was playing today, would be an absolute human highlight reel. I mean, he would be the biggest thing in football. We are talking, of course, friends, of the late great Kansas Comet, Gale Sayers. He rushed for a then NFL record 6 touchdowns in his amazing 1965 Rookie of the Year campaign. He was a machine. But the thing about Gale, why they call him the Kansas Comet, he danced like nobody I've ever seen. I mean, there was just a beauty and a grace to him. The way he was not only able to elude ball tacklers, Sean, but then just hurdle them like they're not even there.
Yeah. Yeah, too. Didn't he have a kickoff and a punt return?
Yeah,
in those touchdowns.
Right.
Yeah, and you know what? For Gale Sayers, for those 6 touchdowns, and I'm going to tell you, I remember this vividly because I lost a fantasy championship on Christmas Day. Alvin Kamara, I think, is the only other person, and I think maybe Dub Jones, but that was way long time ago, and no one even knows who that guy is. But I know Alvin Kamara is the only one to do it in the modern era. And for only 3 people to do it in NFL history, that in itself is absolutely amazing. And rock chalk, Gale.
Yeah, absolutely. Our good friend Dustin Jones. Dustin, great to see you. What's up, my friend? Great to have you. Friends, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to us on YouTube if you don't mind. We are breaking down the greatest one-game performances in Chicago Bears history. We're not even halfway home. Please feel free to text in, put in your favorites as well. All right, this is an oldie but a goodie. We're going back to 1954, friends. And I tell you what, anytime you can do this against the Green Bay Packers, you deserve to be on the list of all-time Bears great single-game performances. Harlan Hill catching four touchdown passes. He had a big game against the Packers earlier that season, but then he turns around against San Francisco and catches 4 TDs. And when you think about the history of Chicago Bears wide receivers, 4 touchdowns in 1954 for a Bears receiver. That's rarefied air indeed, Sean Lugo.
Yeah, and Harlan Hill, I think, what's his name, is the leading receiver right now. Johnny Morris.
Yeah.
And then I think Harlan Hill's number 2 still, isn't he?
Harlan's right behind him. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think we might have a couple of guys that hopefully will pass him in this franchise here pretty soon. They're not very high walls. I watched Harlan Hill a little bit, most of his tapes in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen some of it, but not a lot.
Yeah, his speed. I think if you watch it, his speed for that era is insane. Yeah. I mean, his speed, he just had a grace about him, able to go out and get balls and coverage. All right, friends, let's return to the 21st century now to the great one of the all-time great linebackers in NFL history. We are talking about the Hall of Famer Brian Urlacher now. Now, we all know the legendary Monday Night Football comeback win over the Arizona Cardinals that kicked off the Bears Super Bowl season, just took it into overdrive. We all know we were down 23-3 at halftime, but a lot of us forget. We all remember the manic second half comeback, but we forget that Brian Urlacher was tackling everything on 2 feet that night, 19 tackles, and so much of the legend of that game. I mean, we don't get that classic Denny Green, the Bears aren't who we thought we were. We let them off the hook. We don't get that without Brian Urlacher turning in one of the greatest single-game tackling performances in the history of the NFL, Sean.
Yeah, that was a magic night. We were talking about this a little bit before we went on air, and I remember where I was in Hoffman Estates watching that with a bunch of buddies at the bar, and we went into that night thinking we're going to just lambaste Arizona. They weren't any kind of competition for us, and we're down. And I think Devin Hester returned a kick or a punt. And that started it, and then Urlacher
Devin kicked it all off, and then it's just a flurry. The defense feeds up, and it's boom, boom, boom.
Urlacher stripping that ball, and I think it was Tillman who picked it up and ran it in. I mean, that is one of my favorite games ever. I remember watching that, where I was doing, who I was with so vividly. Yeah. Like, it's one of my favorite Bears games I've ever watched.
It is my favorite game of the Lovie Smith era, bar none, without question.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to the second.
No, besides the NFC Championship win.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can't forget the game that made it all happen for that year. But hey, let's head back to the monsters of the Midway, Sean. We're hitting the way back. Doc Brown's letting us borrow the DeLorean. We're going back to 1984 now. The sack man Richard Dent makes 4.5 sacks against the Raiders. And that is a great Raiders team, because that's a Raiders team, if my memory's not mistaken, is the defending Super Bowl champions at the time. And Richard is just, he's just triple covered, doesn't make a difference. He's just smashing through everything to get to the quarterback.
That was, and Richard Dent, I want to say, wasn't he a 12th round pick or 9th round pick somewhere in there?
Yeah, I think you're right. I want to say, I have to look that up. I did a story about that last year. I want to say it was a 9th round, I think.
Yeah, I think it was the 9th round. I think they had 2 9th round picks that year.
Yeah.
And he was one of them. And it's like, who is this Richard Dent? It's kind of his coming out party a little bit, that game, and made his name for himself. Super Bowl MVP the next year, Richard Dent, the sack man, MVP, good dude, all around dude, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I am looking. Yeah, you're absolutely right. He was
9th,
8th round. Yeah, out of Tennessee State. Tennessee State. The Bears got him at pick 203 of the draft. The ultimate no-risk shot at Richard Lamar Dent ends with him becoming an NFL Hall of Famer. I mean, that's another thing. You want to talk about the greatest Bears sleeper picks of all time without
You know what? This should all give us hope that maybe Austin Booker can turn into the next Richard Dent.
Ooh.
I'm not saying it's going to happen. Let's not get any overreactions. I'm saying, wouldn't that be great?
As Lloyd Christmas would say, though, Sean Lugo, you're saying there's a chance. Pat, great to have you with us. Happy Friday to you as well, my friend. Like the Scottish Bear said, Charles Tillman and Brian Urlacher in that Cardinals Monday night game from 2006. It just great players taking their game to a whole nother level of awesome. All right, let's go to the great Alshon Jeffrey. You know, we forget he had about a 3-year run where he was as good as catching the football as anybody in the NFC. He had a 249-yard receiving effort against the Vikings in 2013. He had a chemistry with Jay Cutler, and I would say you can make a case. Jay Cutler had some great receivers here. His chemistry with Alshon Jeffrey, I think, was as good as he had with anybody. Yeah. And those two were just clicking that entire game.
Yeah, it was a tremendous performance. Is that, and I don't know for a fact, and I apologize, is that the most receiving yards by any Bears receiver in a single game?
You know, we'd have to check with Cliff on that. I want to say yes. I can't imagine anything. Nothing in our lifetimes.
Yeah. Cliff, check that out. Pitch in on that if you could. Yeah. What a tremendous performance. We see those games now by, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, and, against Washington last year, DJ Moore had something pretty similar to that, like 212 yards or something like that.
That's right. GG had a 212-yard game, too. I think it might have been the Bears' first 200-yard receiving game since that Jeffrey 149-yarder 2013. Sean, just outstanding.
Brandon Marshall never had a 200-yard game for the Bears. No.
All right, friends. As we know, Bobby Douglas was a lot of great things. A great running quarterback. Just absolute 5-star human being. But he was never Johnny Unitas, as most people would say. But I tell you, folks, for one glorious day in 1973, Bobby Douglas became Johnny Unitas. He threw for 4 touchdowns against the Packers to sink the Cheeseheads in a glorious performance that really you can make a case, maybe the career performance for Bobby Douglas. But when you're talking about a Bears quarterback in the post-Sid Luckman era, so we're talking about that 1950s to before Jimmy Mack gets here in 1985, for someone to throw for 4 touchdowns, that's a rarefied air indeed.
Yeah, and if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but he wasn't a great passer either, was he?
No, he was known for his legs.
He could run like the wind.
He had a 1,000-yard. Yeah, Justin Fields broke his team quarterback rushing record. So he was the running man for the Bears before Justin Fields got here. Justin, great point about
He stole my secret I was going to throw out there. Thanks, Dustin.
Justin, was that 6 actually? And I could be wrong. I think he actually got 6 in that game. Yeah, career day for Mitch Trubisky, and unfortunately, he was never the same quarterback after that game. But for one 60-minute just force, he was as good as it got there.
Wasn't it the beginning of the Trestman era? Was it McCown? He threw for 5 touchdowns in a game.
You're right, absolutely right. Yeah, the quarterback whisperer. Yeah.
Yeah, the quarterback whisperer.
For about 2.5 weeks, Mark Trestman. For 2.5 weeks, we all thought Mark Trestman might be the mighty man in Chicago, without question.
Hey, love you, Dustin.
Scottish Bear with a great point. Josh McCown against the Cowboys for the Bears. 45-28 win indeed. That was epic. All right, friends. Now we've saved one of the best for last. We cannot say enough about the 4-time, count them 4 times, Sean Lugo, 4-time world champion Sid Luckman. Sid Luckman took to the skies in 1943 against the Dodgers. The football Dodgers. He threw a Bears record. Count them: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 touchdowns against the old Dodgers in 43. He was, Sid Luckman, without question, he was the NFL in the 1940s. Yeah. Is that just a statement of just how much he dominated the league during his glory days, Sean Lugo?
Yeah, absolutely. And the game's changed so much. That's a record that is going to probably stand forever as well, unless maybe Caleb Williams can break it.
Yeah, if there's one guy, it might be the chef. If there's one guy, without question, the chef can make a run at it. All right, so let's wrap it up, friends. Let's wrap it up. The last game to make it on our list, and this is by no means definitive. We're only cutting it down to 5 tonight. So if anybody comes to mind, feel free to send them our way. But how can we not forget the fear of the peanut punch? Charles Tillman against the Titans in 2012 forces 4 fumbles with the legendary peanut punch in one game, Mr. Chicago.
Yeah, and just like when he first started doing that, everyone was like, well, what is this guy doing? Not only did he start that, it's like swept the league.
Oh,
And I mean,
exactly.
you watch modern NFL, they do it now.
Yeah.
He started teaching other players how to do it. I mean, what an innovator and something new that he brought to the game, and causing 4 fumbles with that move. Everyone around the league's like, we got to learn that.
Exactly. Yeah. Now it's essential. It's essential for rookie training for cornerbacks, for safeties. When you come into the league, learn that move. He was a pioneer. All right. So let's try to break it down to 5. I'm going to give you my 5, and then Sean, love to get yours. Obviously, you got to start with Walter, which I think when it's all said and done, was going to be the greatest Bears performance of all time. I got Walter going for 275 against the Vikings. I've got the comment, Gale Sayers going for 6, then NFL record, 6 touchdowns in 1965. I've got Sid Luckman throwing for 7 touchdowns against the Dodgers in 1943. I'm going to go Charles Tillman with the 4 forced fumbles against the Titans in 2012. And then I'm right there with you. I'm taking Mike Brown walking off back-to-back big games with pick 6.
Okay. I'm going to stick with you and Walter at number 1. He's the greatest Bear of all time. I'm not going to leave that. Let's say my number 2 is definitely going to be Mike Brown.
Yeah.
Because I was there, it's part of my history, and it's a record that's probably never going to be broken in the history of this game. I'm going to go Gale Sayers, even though it's only been done 3 times in the NFL, and I'm a Jayhawk, so I got to stick with my rock chalk here. And man, what was that? 3 for me?
Yeah, 3. 2 spots left.
I'm going to go Brian Urlacher, number 4. Because again, just another vivid memory of my Bears fandom growing up. And I will go with Sid Luckman because 7 touchdowns is another record I don't think's ever going to be broken in the NFL again.
Yeah. And for him to do that in that era, I mean, when the forward pass was still, I mean,
right.
Yes, it was still, I mean, anything more than 10 yards back then was still kind of rare. Absolute pioneer. Friends, thank you so much for all of your nominations. If there's any we forgot, and we might have, 105 years, there's a lot of history out there. Please text us sometime this week and let us know. And we'll be back next week, the all-time greatest Bears single game performance of all time. And Cliff, you're absolutely right. If Gale doesn't get hurt, and we could do a whole show about the greatness, the rarefied air greatness of Gale Sayers and what could have been if his knees had given out on him. I want to say, Cliff, 65 to 71, I think was his career. I could be off on that, but I don't think he played 6 years.
Yeah, I think it was 6 years.
6 years, and I think he was only really fully healthy for maybe 3 of those. I mean, his knees just got absolutely
so unfortunate.
Without question.
So unfortunate.
Our good friend Dustin Jones. Dustin, you're absolutely right. This has got to be.
Good job, Dustin.
We're talking about the new Hall of Famer, the Windy City Flyer, St. Louis 2006, 255 return yards, 2 touchdowns. Something else, Dustin, we'll probably never see again with the way the return game has changed in the NFL. Great stuff, everyone. If there's anything that come to mind, let us know this week. We will unveil next Friday the all-time greatest Bears single game performance without question. Good friend Brandon, big game to Placey. Good to see you, my friend, as well. Happy Memorial Day weekend to you, Kyle, as well. Friends, gosh, this has been so much fun. So much stuff that we want to touch on, friends. I know we're running short on time, but let's start about some of the big news around the city this week. Number 1, with all signs pointing to the Caner, the 3-time Stanley Cup champion Patrick Kane, returning to the Chicago Blackhawks. I know for you, Sean Lugo, this is music to your ears.
Yeah, I would really like to see him with Bedard for 1 year, man. I mean, maybe he'll play 2, but just to get that together, I was sad when Kane left. I mean, I understand the reasons, but to bring him back and to put him with Bedard and some of these other young kids like Nazir, I don't know if Oliver Moore will be here next year, but we talked about some of these other young kids. You got the back end that's young. I would love it. 1 year, Kaner, Bedard. I'll take Kaner in fantasy and have him on my line for sure if he's back in Chicago.
Yeah. It's just absolutely just to be a mentor for Connor would be phenomenal. And he's still, I think, only 34 years old.
He could
Germany with
probably
a
play
good point.
3 more.
Yeah, without question. Hey, Germany with a good point, Sean. Can you talk a little bit about this? Blackhawks did make a trade today.
Yeah, they did. They actually gave up an extra second round pick to the Islanders. They moved up 2 spots in the first round and 2 spots in the second round, but gave up an extra second round pick. I was actually talking to Michael about this earlier today, and the only reason we can think of is there has to be a player that they see that they want that they don't think will be there at 20. I can't giving up a second round pick to move up 2 spots in each round. I guess if that's the price, but I can only say there has to be something there that they see they want that they don't think will be there 2 spots after 20.
Yeah, and Germany, as Sean points out, the Blackhawks had entered this week with 3 second-round picks, so they definitely had the capital to do that too. As Sean says, there's got to be a guy that they're looking at. The 2024 NHL Draft, friends, begins June 28th at the Sphere in Las Vegas. Rounds 2 through 7 will be conducted on June 29th. And the Bears do have an absolute wealth of this now, because as Sean was talking about, we now have the 8th and 50th overall pick in the draft from the Islanders. So this will give the Blackhawks some even more capital as they try to round out that roster for Connor Bedard. Let's head back over to Clark and Addison. Friends, I don't know if you saw, just got called about 20 minutes ago. All the terrible thunderstorms, and our hearts go out to anybody. I know Sean Lugo is got lightning outside. He's got hail. You want to talk about a fearless sports podcaster, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just Chicago, but so many cities have just been barraged by terrible weather this week. Our good friends in Greenfield, Illinois, Iowa, a town of about 2,000 people, 60 miles south of Des Moines, literally wiped off the map. But anyway, long story short, all that weather hit St. Louis tonight, postponed the Cubs and the Cardinals. So that game will be made up down the road.
It's a split doubleheader, July 13th.
July 13th. Okay, thank you, Sean. July 13th, and that would be big because that would be when hopefully the Cubs are starting to try to put some separation between themselves and the rest of the National League Central. If all goes to plan, Sean, we know this team has not been playing good baseball over the last 2 weeks. We lost 4 out of 6 to the Braves, and I thought those were statement games because those are the type of games we're going to have to win if we're going to really be any kind of threat come September or October. But what we gotta love, let me take you back to what Ben Brown did, and you called Ben Brown, I think, before anybody, of how good he could be this year. We all knew what Ben Brown could be maybe in 2025, maybe 2026. But now, when you look at Ben Brown, are you seeing echoes of Mark Pryor, echoes of Kerry Wood, with how good, how composed, and how in command of the strike zone he is as a rookie starting pitcher?
Yeah, I'm even more impressed than I thought I was going to be. And the thing is they haven't stretched him out much, and he's only going 4 or 5 innings. His pitch count's a little high, getting up there, but and Jordan Wicks actually started today in Iowa. So I think once he's back and we can get him into that middle relief role for this year, because I do think Ben Brown will be a front end starter for us here, maybe a 4 in the rotation coming up in years to come. But man, this guy can be the valuable piece in the pen. And as we touch on that pen really quick, they're actually playing lights out right now. They got a .62 earned run average over the last 17 games. They finally turned it around. So, and you get Ben Brown back in there. And then Drew Smiley's pitching too.
Without question, yeah. And the Cubs bullpen has been so good, as you mentioned, Mr. Chicago, over the last 2 weeks. They put Kyle Hendricks in there just to make it fair for everybody else. uh, without due respect to the professor, it's time to pull the plug on that. Hey,
Dude,
another
yes.
guy that you have been on, Cade Horton, with another monster effort down at
Yeah.
Iowa earlier this week. It seems like it's just a matter of time. Do you think the next injury, could we possibly see him up here before the end of June?
Yeah, because his first 2 starts were really rocky. He gave up 12 runs, like four or five home runs. But his last 2 starts, we're starting to see Cade Horton again.
Yeah.
And sometimes, just like Caleb Williams, there's an adjustment period as you're moving up the ranks. And I think he went through it, give him a little time and figure it out. This guy's an absolute beast, and he's going to be a monster for the Cubs. No doubt.
I don't want to get ahead of myself because we're talking 2 months of baseball. We can't really make any kind of concrete determination until we get to September. But with what we have right now, with Shota, with Javier Assad, with Ben Brown, Cade Horton, are we seeing the best collection of young pitching talent on one Cubs pitching staff than we've seen in at least 40, 50 years?
Maybe ever. Maybe ever.
I can't even think going back to. I mean, you think about it. Yeah, I mean, after the 1960s, there was nothing on that staff for decades.
No, and in 2016, I mean, Lester was a vet. Arrieta was a vet. They did. Hendricks was a couple years in, so that wasn't a young staff at all. And I mean, what we're seeing, this development, and this is like the greatest thing in the world, because when they started making all these trades, when they broke up the 16 team, and then we're the dumpster fire, but they got, struck gold with David Robinson, which landed us Ben Brown. Yeah. It was really awesome to see, because as a diehard, lifelong Cubs fan, the one thing that the Cubs, and Cleet, you can probably touch on this too, the one thing this organization has always failed to do was build the minor leagues. They've never had a system where right now, I mean, you can call up Canario. You can call up, she should have never left. PCA should still be here.
Yeah, I did not get at all. I mean, why waste an option? This is not the time to waste an option on PCA.
No. I think he's hitting 500 since they sent him back down. And you're looking at a team who is struggling offensively, and you're like, man, we need a spark. Every time this guy's up in the field, on the base pads, I mean, he is a spark plug.
He's a smart player, and I think he earns his roster spot with his defense and his base running alone. Yeah. I mean, there's just so much he can do, even when he's not hitting. That boggles my mind. Yeah, without question. Right. And friends, getting back to the pitching, we don't want to compare. We're not trying to compare this Cubs rotation to the 03 rotation that was led by Pryor, Wood, and Zambrano. We're not trying to compare them to the epic 2016 rotation of led by Lester and Arrieta. But there's some good stuff here. I have not seen. I've been a Bears or Cubs fan my entire life. I have never seen young pitching talent all on one rotation or on its way up. Like we have right now with this team too. Unfortunately, Scott Spare also bringing up some great points here too about just how good Dick Butkus was. Dick Butkus, and great point, Scott Spare. That's on me. How could I forget the greatest linebacker to ever live? Without question, we'll have to definitely redo that. He's a contender to make it to next week's Final Five without question, Scott Spare.
Absolutely.
But that being said, Sean Lugo, getting back to the Cubs now, we're in a situation where finally getting back into regular division play. How huge is the month of June? Will we find out? What does this team have to do win-loss in June to still be in good playoff shape come July 1st?
I'm going to yes, I touched on this on our Facebook page today when I put out this series with the Cardinals coming up. Oh God, I said their name. I mean the Deadbirds.
They never look better. Got to give them that. They have never looked better, Sean Lugo.
Yeah, I agree. Although we come into this series, leading up to the series, we're a dumpster fire, and they've won 8 out of their last 10. I'm like, come on, God, what are you doing to us?
Gotta love Major League Baseball without question.
I will tell you this. This next 6 days, now that we got this rain out, Saturday, Sunday, and the next 4 against the Brewers, the Cubs got to come out of this smelling like roses. They have to win 4 of these 6. Or they're digging themselves too big of a hole.
Yeah, and
I
our
don't
good
think the
friend Joe.
Pirates. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Oh, I'm
Go
sorry. Our
ahead.
good friend Joseph S. sitting in the catbird seat up in Milwaukee. You're absolutely right, Joe. Joe, that your team is the best run team, in my opinion, all of Major League Baseball, without question. And I'm even going to throw Baltimore, Tampa Bay in there because nobody's doing more with less. The Brewers, the way they're able to scout and develop and just
Yeah,
keep finding a way to grind out wins and find themselves at the top of the
it's
Central is impressive.
it's it's so crazy getting rid of Burns
Yeah,
and losing Devin Williams and
yeah,
Woodruff. I'm
yeah.
like, I'm like, oh man, the Brewers are going to take a huge step
Well, yeah,
back.
and then
And
for
Pat
the other
Murphy's
ones,
got these
the
guys
five
just
wins, yeah,
rolling.
the 5 wins that council usually, wins for them every couple of months. They've lost that as well. They just
Yeah,
keep finding way after way after way, Sean. It is remarkable and inspiring
they're,
what's going
they're a
on up in
repeated
Milwaukee.
thorn in our side.
Yes, yes. But as you know, as the old clean up proverb states, Sean Lugo, revenge is a dish best served cold, and we will serve it up cold next week against the Brew Crew, hopefully.
Yeah, right.
Sean Lugo, this has been so much fun. What is on the menu for Mr. Chicago for this Memorial Day weekend?
Well, we're going to a barbecue tomorrow.
Nice.
And I'm going to skip the first 3 hours in the house because I'm going to watch the WWE pay-per-view from Jeddah.
Nice.
Then
King
I'll
and
get
queen
into
of the
some
ring.
bags and some other things. And then Sunday we got a terrible. It looks like the temperature's going to drop and another crazy round of storms coming in all day.
Is it
So it looks
insane?
like Sunday's a washout.
You're getting 3 seasons in a week this week here
It's
in the
crazy.
American Midwest, without question.
But I
Hey,
also want to say really quick, thank
yeah,
you to all the servicemen and women out there.
yeah,
Really appreciate everything that you've done for us. We stand behind you. God bless you all the
absolutely.
fallen. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Brandon Trax Hyatt, a proud veteran of the U.S. Navy. Everyone, like you said, all these freedoms we have, all these barbecues, these ball games, these great times with family is all possible because some gave all. And we are indebted to them forever. We won't be here talking with you, friends, without them.
God
So,
bless.
past and present, the biggest salute to our men and women in uniform. Thank you for everything you do, and thank you, friends, for joining us as well. This is our highlight of our week. All of our great friends, Cliff, Jeremy, Scottish Bear, Dustin. Great to see you again, Brandon, Kyle. Patty checking in, Stephanie, Atmos, all y'all. We love you. Thank you so much for kicking off your weekends with us, wherever you are this Memorial Day weekend. We hope it's under sunny skies and having a great time with you and your family. Friends, this has been the voice of the Chicago sports fan, Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse. For Mr. Chicago, Sean Lugo, I'm your guy, Cleet Soup Campbell. And until we meet again, friends, keep living your life like Hall of Famer Steve Mongo McMichael with everything you got. Take care, friends. We'll see you next time on Monsters of the Madhouse.
God bless.